Hello and Ya'ali Madad. We hope you and your families are healthy and safe at home. My name is Zahida Lalji and I'm part of the AKEPB Personal Finance team. I'm here again with Kerry Clark, our financial literacy trainer, Inara Samani and Ali Khan Makani, fellow AKEPB team members, and we would like to welcome you to the fourth part of our Managing Your Money sessions. Hello again, Kerry. Hi, Inara. Hi, Ali Khan.
Hi, everyone. It's again a pleasure to be here on our fourth session.
So yes, Kerry, we've arrived at session 4, which is the lesson everyone has been waiting for. So tell us about the session today, please.
From the title, I know that today's session is about slicing the pie. Given the surprise I had when I discovered how much of my total income was being spent on housing and utilities, I am a bit nervous about looking at the other categories of spending, especially because I have not been judicious about how much I spend on, let's say, going out with friends. I do want to get a handle on my limits for other types of expenditures.
You're right that this session is finally at the point of putting a percentage of income for each category.
So this week, Kerry, I'd like to turn over to you for you to walk us through the process, and we'll save our questions for the end.
That's fine. The aim of today's session is to go through the process of how a budget is made. However, as we do, everyone must keep in mind the difference between households. A young family's spending categories, and thus the size of the various slices of the pie, will be different from a more mature family household or someone who lives alone. The point is that the process of creating a budget is relevant for all households, whatever the shape and size. And remember, you can even translate the process to be more age appropriate for children. Another point to keep in mind is, as we work through this session, that we are talking about budget making in general, not your specific budget yet. For a moment, you must suspend your thoughts about your own financial life right now. Try not to fall into listening to the steps with what we call a yes, but that doesn't apply to me attitude. Any and all of these steps can eventually be adapted to your situation. A key idea to remember is that unless you've just won the lottery, everyone's income is finite. There is only just so much, even if you borrow on credit cards to get by. And at a certain point, you will hit the wall if there is not a plan in place. I'll start with categories of things we spend money on, starting with the area we spend the most on: housing, utilities, and home supplies, like soaps, cleaning supplies, toilet paper. Then, listed in the order of needs, come categories of food, transportation, clothing, medical, and so on. For the other categories, most spending, not all, will fit under one of these categories. Now, we apply percentages of income to each of these categories. We use the government recommendations of housing, 25 to 35%, depending upon the size of the household. Food is the next category, and here we have to be careful about the food we eat at home and outside the home. Why? Some eating out is because we don't have time to cook, or you feel your cooking isn't up to scratch. And some eating out is for entertainment. Let's say 10 to 15%. Next, we have transportation. And I have found over the years that this is another category that catches people by surprise. I know few people who can actually add up all the yearly expenditures related to owning or leasing a car. We think of the cost of gasoline, but there is maintenance, breakdowns, the services, oil changes, tires, insurance, roadside recovery, including AA, cleaning, parking costs, parking tickets, etc. Then there are other transportation expenses such as taxi, train tickets, perhaps annual passes or more sporadic tickets. Depending upon where you work, the transportation percentage can range between 6 and 12%. Clothing comes next. Typically, this can range between 6 and 15%, again, depending upon number of family members, type of job one does, and whether kids have to wear uniforms or not. In terms of priority, medical may, in some cases, not be high because in this country we do have access to the NHS. But sometimes there are dental bills, elder care help, and other medical bills not covered by the NHS or insurance. Here, as always, depending upon household characteristics, the percentage can be between 4 and 10%. Now to the more messy part. What's the category for haircuts, nails, massages, gym subscriptions, etc.? Well, there's a personal category for those types of expenditures, and another one if you are a student for your books and school supplies. Ironically, some people put children and entertainment into a miscellaneous category. Then, depending on the circumstances, you have debt repayment, 5%, savings, 10%, and the margin of error, 3 to 5%. Notice that the percentages do not add up to 100%. They won't in an exploratory, explanatory chart like this one. They will have to add up when you look at a specific case. So, let's choose an imaginary person who earns a salary of £3,000 per month after taxes and see what amount she would have if we use the average percentages suggested by the government. She lives in rented accommodation, rides the train into the city for her work. However, she does have a car she uses on the weekends and for short trips. She would like to start an emergency fund, invest in a retirement program, and save for a down payment for a flat. She gives money each month to her parents for a disabled brother who lives at home. Here's how she could divide the expenditures by percentages. You can see from the chart that we have used the government suggestion of 25% for housing and utilities. Because she is single and living alone, we have used the following percentages. 10% for food, 8% for transportation, 6% for clothing, 3% for medical, 10% for personal needs like hair and gym, 10% to her family, and she has 10% for her miscellaneous like entertainment, 5% to pay down debt, 10% for savings, and 3% margin of error. You can see from the next chart how much of her salary is now divided among the various categories of expenditure. If she followed this division of percentages, she would have £750 for all her housing expenses. Remember, that includes utilities and cleaning supplies. She would have £300 for food, and she would need to decide how much of that is in-house food and how much is takeout. Her transportation costs would need to stay within £240, and so on down this list. How and when will she know if this will work? Maybe not for a while. She needs to watch her spending habits to see whether she can live within these lines of spending. For example, 25% for housing plus utilities may not be enough. So she could take a percentage from her food and entertainment category. This is when she needs to organize her bills into needs and wants. Are they monthly, periodical? She has to make a list of bills that occur periodically and divide that total amount by 12 to calculate how much must be set aside each month to cover them when they come due. She will need to become more watchful about her off-the-cuff spending and about collecting receipts. As you can see, making a budget is not for the faint-hearted, but it is for those who would like to be in control of their money resource and to go for future goals within whatever current limitations they have now. This is what it would look like in a pie chart.
Thank you, Carrie. We would like to continue today's session by asking you some questions. One of our team had to take a cut in their salary, and so is really feeling the pinch. What good would a budget do for them now in these trying times?
Well, I agree that we are in unprecedented times world over. But no matter what's going on, the purpose of a budget is to have a plan, an understanding of where you want to get to and how you will get there. Sometimes the route has to be changed and adjustments to the plan must be made to avoid obstacles in the best plausible way. It may take you longer and the journey may be different, but at least you will be making some informed decisions.
Harry, with due respect, even with a budget and reasonable savings, I do not believe it will be possible to live should you lose your job or something were to happen like the present situation. I am sure you would agree with that. It would be even harder for those who have not been in the workforce that long or recently made large commitments. What are these households to do?
Well, Inara, you are correct that for some households these days, meeting living standards once taken for granted are going to be no longer possible. Governments of many countries have been worried about low saving rates in the general population for many years. All we need to do is look out there at how many households are going to food banks these months. Times are not just tough, they are dire. You may know people who are now in the situation that you described, households that don't have enough to live because of losing their job, little savings, or they were a new entry into the workforce. These people are having to be very creative. Some are getting jobs in areas they never thought they would. Some are moving in with friends or family, and some are living in their cars. We're not trying to solve those problems in this short course. What we are doing is more along the lines of preparing for when hopefully life returns to some kind of normalcy. This may sound a little cold, but these short sessions can be used to prepare for when this darkness lifts. And it will be the moment to implement a budget, although during tough times, budgeting your income will be crucial. The bigger picture behind learning how to budget is that it's part of planning for a financially secure household. Part of that plan is to have an emergency fund, money set aside that is never touched no matter what, for just such times as we have now. Financial planners will tell us that we need between 3 and 6 months living expenses saved in a place where digging into it is difficult. And yes, that's a lot of money. But as we can all see, what we never thought would happen has happened. And perchance, when, if not, another event occurs that knocks you off your feet, you and your family will be prepared. This pandemic is what we hope a rare occurrence, but there are other difficult situations that do occur throughout one's life.
Carrie, putting aside these unusual times, there are times, particularly with students and young families, when you have a lot of spending at one time, like at the beginning of an academic year, moving house or buying a new car. If one has not yet saved up for this, but know your future income has been allocated to it, how does one provide for it?
Well, that is a difficult one because everyone's situation is different. And so how the issue is resolved will depend on factors particular to the household. The factors include, of course, current income and also your values. This is where the discussion of what is a need and what is a want comes into play. Sometimes the things we want must be waited for. Regarding students in university, having to pay large sums to go to university is a relatively new phenomenon in the UK, and many families may not have planned ahead. Those that have not planned have to decide if they can handle the debt that comes at graduation. It is difficult to stay within one's means, especially with the marketing forces of our society. We can sometimes want things without thinking through whether or not they really fit into our values. And sometimes we lose sight of what we value and do not plan for them. What's the saying? A rich man is one who lives within his means and has some money left over.
That's a very important point, Carrie. We have to keep our values front of mind throughout this process. And I also really liked your comment about creativity. We have all been put to the test recently, and hopefully our resilience has prevailed to get us through this difficult time. So what we've understood is that having been through this process of making a budget, it is somewhat fluid, and the work needs to be put in regularly to align it to our lifestyles and needs. The first step is to learn how to put together a financial roadmap for your household. And as mentioned before, this takes time and effort in the beginning to create a budget, but it's not impossible. And of course, the payoff is enormous. Spending is brought under control, and there is great satisfaction in watching savings grow and debt paid down. There is a great peace of mind that comes with making informed decisions about expenditures.
Absolutely. I love it when someone says something like, for the first time, I really enjoyed my vacation because I did not have to put it on a credit card.
So Carrie, instead of you giving us homework this week, the team would like to share what we have found useful. We have taken these government guidelines on expenditure and looked at how our lifestyle categorizes into these buckets. We would like to suggest our listeners do the same. This week, I'm going to go away and talk to my household about our needs versus wants and our monetary values, as I feel this will be beneficial.
Carrie, once again, you've given us some great tools to continue with creating our budgets. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. We hope you have found this session useful, and we look forward to you joining us again for our final session on leaky pockets.
Thank you, and please, everyone, stay safe.
Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact AKEPB via email on akepbukinfo@iiuk.org. Carrie and the AKEPB team will be very happy to answer any questions.
We pray for the continued health and safety of everyone in the Jamaat during this time. Ya Ali Madad and Qudafis.